and after I create the test. I mean, I shouldn't have issues with accessibility. There must be accessibility. There should always be accessibility. Or I always find that the link here, the link on the right here, is called final exam, and I find that there's an option to hide it. Okay, hiding it isn't available. It's like it's not there, and this causes problems for what? For the students. Do you have any issues with the test settings? Because we're in the exam period, right? I wanted to go over the test settings with you. The settings are very important, and the questions of the test itself are also crucial. For example, let's take any test and look at its questions. The questions themselves are important. The answers to the question, I mean, if you're creating a multiple choice question, the 4 answers that the student will choose from should all be the same color and font size. For example, there shouldn't be one answer in bold and the others not, or one answer in red while the others are in black. So, the formatting of all the questions and the answers that the student chooses from must be consistent. This is also one of the important things in the questions. It's important that if you're creating a test, that's fine. But if you have tests within the course and want to use their questions, don't just create a question and say true or false. Instead, reuse questions. For example, if I've created several tests like a midterm exam and I want the final exam from those tests, reuse the questions. Create a random block or a question set. It won't make a difference. Let's not create a question and then say true or false and start writing the question's details and the answers. No, you should do something called reusing questions. As long as I have, let's assume I've created 3-4 tests for the students in the course, like a midterm exam and other tests, and I've created new tests. And I want the final exam. Let's assume I want to get the final exam from those 4 tests. In this case, you would come and say what? You would say create a random block or create a question set. It won't make a difference. Creating a random question set only works with question banks. The question set deals with various stores and different types of tests. So, if you deal with a set of questions, such as those involved in the process and other related elements, it will open up here and say, you had created tests before, right? I created 4 tests. You specify by saying all the tests that I created, the ones I dealt with. When you select all tests, it will bring you all the questions. E.g., I have here 577 questions, so I have many questions. Instead of having to write questions from scratch, I have tests and I have questions, so I can benefit from them. I specify all tests and say, I want this question, I want that question, I want this question. Or I can just say, show all. I click on the option called show all and then assume it brings 200 questions. For example, it brings me 200 questions. When it brings me 200 questions, I just scroll up and select the first box up there, and it will select those 200 questions for me. I selected all the tests, and I can say, I want this question, I want that question, I want this question. Or I can just come and say, show all. I click on the option called show all, and then let's assume it brings me 200 questions. When it brings me 200 questions, I just scroll up and select the first box up there, and it will select those 200 questions for me. Once it selects the 200 questions, I click on the word submit. That box up there will select the 200 questions for me. When it selects the 200 questions, click on the word submit. Here it is. What will it show me here? The 200 questions. Here. What did it show me? The 200 questions. Here I can tell it to specify my test. If it consists of, for example, 30 questions. 30, I say submit. So what did I do? It will give each student 30 different questions from the 200 questions I have. So I also specified to the system to give each student 30 questions from the 200 questions that are available. Where were those 200 questions? They were in tests that I created before. Reuse past test questions to save effort. Transfer tests by exporting and importing. So instead of exhausting myself, I can do something called reusing questions. I can reuse the questions I created before in previous tests. That's for this part. Now, if I'm entering the course and I have tests within the course, I can benefit from them this way by reusing the questions. But what if I'm in a different section? For example, I have now section 4 and it has a test that I need, or there are several tests I need to transfer to another section. I need to do something called exporting and importing. So let's say I'm going to check the other section. Let's assume it's section 3. Now I have section 4 with 1, 2, or 3 tests, and I want to take them and transfer them to section 3 to benefit from them there. Or in section 4, there is something called what? I can go down to something called course tools. Or I have several tests that I need to transfer to another section. So I have to do something called exporting and importing. So let's say I'm going to check the other section. Let's assume it's section 3. Now I have section 4 with 1, 2, or 3 tests, and I want to take them and transfer them to section 3 to benefit from them there. Or when we go to section 4, there is something called what? Let me see. I go down to something called, exactly course tools. Course tools. These tools include something called tests, surveys, and question banks. So I will benefit from the tests, or as I said, I will choose the tests and see all the tests I have. These are the tests I need to take a copy from and transfer it to section 3. Any test I want, I just go ahead and export it to my local computer. I export it as a compressed file, downloading to my laptop's downloads folder. Once exported, it's saved there. It takes seconds and we go to downloads. Here's the file in course 4, starting with test and compressed. I leave it compressed, unchanged. I also have test 10 exported to my computer. In downloads, I find 2 files, 1 and 2. From which course? Course 4. I want to use them in course 3. So I'm going to course 3, to course tools. Now I go to tests and surveys, then to question banks, and to tests to place these 2 compressed files. Instead of exporting, I import them here. I also have test 10 exported locally. In the downloads folder, I have 2 files, 1 and 2. From course 4, use them in course 3. Go to course 3, same place, course tools. Go to tests and surveys, then question banks to place these 2 tests. Instead of export, import. Import here in tests for course 3. Click browse, select local files. Go to downloads folder. Here is the test file. Click open, then submit. File test 10 uploads here. It processes, then completes. Click OK. I'll go to tests. Head to tests. I'll import them here. I'll open and submit it. Test 10 will upload. I'll click OK. I'll browse for the second file, submit, and wait for confirmation. Click browse. Then browse local files. Here is downloads. Test file here. Click open. Then submit. File test 10 uploads with tests. Processing takes a moment. Click OK. Uploaded test is there. Browse second file. Click submit and wait for upload confirmation. Where are files? To get latest files, click last modified date column. Click twice for recent dates. May 15th. Listen. These tests are in course 3. To benefit, go to test folder like creating a test. You will find the file there. Browse for the second file and click submit. Wait a few seconds for upload confirmation. To find the latest files, click last modified date. Twice to see the most recent, like May 15th. Listen. The 2 tests are in course 3. To use them, go to the tests folder as if creating a regular test. Create a new test. You can find them under Add Test. Choose one, say Test 10. Click Submit and adjust settings like availability and announcements. The questions are ready. Just set a timer for 60 minutes and randomize questions. Submit to create Test 10 or create a new test. Then you will create a new test. What will you do? You can do one of 2 things. When you come from here, you will find them under Add Test. If you want to add this one or that one, it's fine. You can say Test 10 and click on Submit and then set the settings, like making it available to students and adding an announcement because the questions are already there. I just need to adjust its settings. I will set a timer and tell it to start with 60 minutes. After that, I will say to randomize the questions and click on Submit. So, I have created the test, which is Test 10. Or I can create a new test. All right. A new test. Okay. And I will click on Submit. Instead of creating a new question, I will tell it to reuse a question and then create a question set. And of course, I will find all the tests that I uploaded are here, including the other 2 tests that I brought. All right. I will find them here in the tests. This is test 10 and it was called listen. And I can benefit from them in the new test. This is the way I can benefit from exporting and importing the test. I'll get back to you. Again, if there's anything regarding the tests or anything in Blackboard before we wrap up, as it's almost time for the Maghrib prayer, God willing. So, if you have any questions or anything unclear in Blackboard, please let me know. Can you hear me clearly? Okay, my voice is through. Any questions? We are almost at Maghrib prayer time, so we will wrap up soon. It's almost 7 o'clock. Thank you all, and we are at the end of this semester's sessions. I wish you success. Thank you to my colleagues in the Deanship and e-learning agency, especially Ms. Munira, our training coordinator. Thank you for your efforts. If there's anything, we are here for you in technical support. I would like to thank you all very much, and thank God we are at the end of this semester's sessions. I wish you, the students, and everyone success, God willing. I also want to thank all my colleagues in the Deanship and the e-learning agency, and I especially thank Ms. Munira, who is with us today as the training coordinator. Thank you very much for your efforts and dedication. If there's anything, even if it's not related to the session, or if there's any issue, we are here for you, God willing, in technical support. Peace be upon you, and God's mercy and blessings. And if there's anything, even if the issue isn't related to the session, if there's any problem, we are here for you, God willing, in technical support. Peace be upon you, and God's mercy and blessings.